Okay, we've just
We are live now, Michael.
started. Thank you, Mahir. That's Mahir, our technical wizard,
Oh, that.
our unsung hero. And welcome, everybody. It's good to see the participants coming in. We've got 34 participants already. And just give you a few more seconds. And I think you know we do like to get started on time. And yes, if you're not speaking, could I ask you to please mute your microphone? And just a little warning or caveat, I think you're aware that we are recording this session as we did the previous sessions, but just so you are certain that you know, or we are certain that you know, we will be recording this. So if you object to being recorded, you'll have to leave now and then perhaps watch this on video later on. And also the questions in the Q&A, the text chat, all of those will be part of the documentation for this session. So just be aware of that, that they're not private text chats and so forth. Right, let's get started. So welcome to the GEO LDN Technology Innovation Competition. Things are getting more and more exciting with each stage. Here designing use planning solution for land degradation neutrality. And to get started today, as you know, today is our sneak preview. We'll be seeing some of your ideas in a little bit more detail than we saw last time in the virtual pitch. And we're all in a great deal of suspense. But before we get started with the sneak previews, let's take a look at some of the context here, some of the features. We have available, as last time, this session with simultaneous interpretation in French and Spanish, and English, of course, is this soundtrack. So if you'd like to take advantage of the simultaneous interpretation, then please click on that globe symbol. You see that little globe symbol with the arrow at the bottom there pointing to. If you click on that, then you'll get a selection of the different languages available, and click on one of those. If you click on the French, then you'll be hearing the French interpretation of whatever we're saying here, and likewise for Spanish. Okay, I just want to make sure that you're all able to access the text chat, and we'll be using that a lot today. So I'd like you to open your text chat window, and you can do that by clicking on the chat symbol there. As you see at the top upper right, that little chat bubble. If you click on that, your chat window should open. And what I'd like you to do is to write in your own language, in your native language or your regional language. How do you write, "How are you?" in the text chat? And just make sure before you broadcast that to us all that you have that option there to all panelists and attendees. That means everybody will be able to see it. And please write in your own language, "How are you?" And the next step I'll tell you about, but okay, I see that you're doing that just fine, most of you. Let us know if you have any problems opening the text chat. So the part 2 for this little warm up here is if you can read some of the how are yous, if you understand them in those languages. Here I took the Greek language. We have how are you in Greek, and then we have a response in Greek here. Also respond to the how are yous using the text chat for those languages that you understand. So we'll see how international you all are. Okay. So you see some of these how are yous, como estas, and we've got Marish doing the Hindi, and namaste, and hello to everyone in. Okay, so we have, yeah, Ayhan, you can write how are you in Turkish, please. And that's Paletti Lewis. Great. So if you understand any of these languages asking how you are, please do respond in that language in the text chat. just to make sure that you can use the text chat. Great. So this really gives us a nice feeling as to how international we're really spanning the globe here with everybody here in Antjes Gut. That's good to hear. And great. We're going to move on now. I'd like to explain just a couple other features of our Zoom session here. And we have different roles here. So be aware that you can activate the Q&A window by clicking the Q&A icon. If you are an attendee, if you're in the attendee role, you can ask questions in the Q&A. That will be much more relevant a little bit later. If you're a competitor and you have a speaking role, or maybe you're an expert panelist, you can only answer questions. And please only answer questions that are directed at your respective team. And you can use if you're a panelist, you can use the participants panel to also raise your hand to draw attention. So if you're an attendee, your options are simplified. You can contribute in the text chat as you've just been doing. You can raise your hand by clicking that raise hand icon, the yellow arrow there. That's what it looks like. And you can ask questions in the Q&A. So those are the types of interaction you can perform here. You know, we'd like to start with an icebreaker, and today's icebreaker is a kind of puzzle for you to test your, I don't know, your visual acumen or your historical sense. And I want you to use your imagination to the fullest again. You're going to see a collage on the next page, and I want you to guess what connects this collage to what we're doing here today. So, and again, make sure you're broadcasting to all panelists and attendees. Please be spontaneous, and here's our collage, and guess in the text chat. So what do you think? What could this mean? We have the explosive, yes. We have 344. I don't know what that could be. What do you think? Your guesses, spontaneous guesses in the text chat. I hope you can all see it. What could this mean in connection with today? And we use these icebreakers and warm-ups just to create a good atmosphere in the beginning, so you relax a little bit. I'm sure some of you are a little bit nervous. So here, just an occasion to, yes, you might get the no prize if you win, but what does that have to do with today? Position, geography, we have Stockholm there. We have looks like a gentleman's eyes. We have some kind of black outline. Yes, Simon, sort of on the right track, but what does this have to do with today, with what we're doing here today? And waiting for some more guesses. What do you think? What could it be? The location, yeah, Stockholm. Well, I'm coming to you from Germany, so something about vision. But a vision with an explosion. 344, 1901. Okay, well, I'm going to reveal the connection. No. Thank you, Neil. On this very day, on December 10th, in 1901 was when the Nobel Prize was established, the first awarding of the Nobel Prize on this day in 1901. So we have 344 days into the year. That's the 10th of December. Of course, it is awarded in Stockholm, and there we see Alfred Nobel, who originated the prize. Of course, he made a lot of money with his patent on dynamite. And yeah, the Nobel Prize is a prize maybe a little bit bigger than our prize today, but this is also a historic day. Who knows how our sneak preview on December 10th is going to go down in history. So we have big expectations for you. So thank you for playing along in our little icebreaker. And now to hand over, we're going to take a look at what's coming up today. We'll start off with some welcoming remarks, then a little bit of a brief introduction to the competition. We know that many of you are aware of the different aspects of the competition, so we won't spend too much time on that. And then we will get to the real core of our sessions today, and that are the sneak previews. We'll be seeing all the sneak previews one after the other with a little break. So first 3 sneak previews, then a little break, and then the remaining 2. Towards the end, we'll have a general question and answer to find out what questions you still have, and then we'll be doing a little wrap up, looking forward to what's coming up, asking you for your feedback, and of course, saying thanks to our presenters. So that is our agenda in a nutshell today. And I'm going to just briefly introduce you again to the support team. You might be familiar with some of these faces. Of course, we have Anna working very hard, constantly behind the scenes, making sure everything runs just right. And we have Sarah doing much the same. And Astrid, of course, our usability expert, human-centered design, and me, Michael Tyon, the moderator of the sessions here. So that's our support team. And now I'm going to hand over to Neil Sims, who's going to be giving you a little bit more of an idea of other aspects of the competition. So Neil.
Thanks, Michael. Will you be controlling the slides?
Yes, I will. So just say next slide.
Beautiful. Okay, beautiful. Well, g'day everyone. That's Australian for hello. And welcome to the sneak peek event for the Land Degradation Neutrality competition. And just a reminder here that what we're after, of course, is to provide software tools and analytics to help countries achieve LDN. We talked about the global impact of dynamite. Well, you've got the opportunity to have global impact here too. For those of you who I might not have met before, my day job is at CSIRO in Australia, the government science agency, and there, as part of my role there, I led the writing of the Good Practice Guidance Report for SDG Indicator 15.3.1, which is very closely aligned with the Land Degradation Neutrality Program. Next slide, please. I am also the co-chair of the GEO LDN initiative with Antje Hetchelchen and Amos Carbobar. And along with Alex Zvolev from Conservation International, I co-lead Working Group 3 of the GEO LDN initiative, which focuses on supporting data analytics systems for LDN. And I also happen to be the chair of the jury that's part of the judging process for this competition. Next slide, please, Michael. Helping us out, we've got a fantastic committee of experts as well, and they've each got specialised expertise in one or more of the key areas related to the competition. And we're very grateful for all of their efforts and for their guidance throughout this competition. Next slide, please. So just to recap the process so far, we commenced this competition in October and received 23 entries with participants from 36 countries and on every continent. The virtual pitch event was held on 30th of October and we had 7 entries there. And you can see here on the slide, the pink circles are the original entries and the blue ones are the continents, or I guess from where people remain in the competition. Next slide, please. So today is the sneak peek event where we get to hear more from each of the remaining 5 teams about their proposals in more detail. After today, only 3 teams will be going through to the remainder of the competition, and will be each of the presentations will be reviewed by the jury and the panel of experts. We're due to complete the competition early next year, when we will announce the winners at the UNCCD's CRIC event, a high-level gathering. COVID issues mean that the exact date and nature of this event aren't 100% sure at the moment, but it's going to be in Q1 next year, and we'll keep you updated about the progress on any changes in the dates via email and on the websites as well. Next slide, please, Michael. So one of the key objectives of this competition has been to ensure that the potential users of the proposed tools are involved with the development of the tools right from the start. And so this is why we insisted that every proposal must include end users and technical developers on their team, and why we engaged Astrid Muller, an expert in human-centered design, to provide perspectives on the proposals and to be a resource for all of the teams to increase their end user relevance and engagement. And Astrid remains a resource for you all to draw on, and doing so will greatly improve your chances of success in the competition. So please make use of those resources, and you can see some of the contact details here. So if you need a reminder of these later on, then just let us know. Next slide, please, Michael. So the evaluation framework is the same one that we've used throughout the entire competition, and it's essentially founded on 3 key areas. Science excellence. We're looking at the excellence of the science encapsulated in the proposed tools and the consistency of the science with the LDN framework and SDG indicator 15.3.1. The potential for high impact as demonstrated through the use cases that the proposal links to, the focus on the end user needs and engagement with stakeholders, and the potential for uptake and further development and stakeholder support for the proposal, and the coherence of the proposed implementation method and framework. So we're looking at the open source nature of it, whether it's considered factors such as data storage and security, and the readiness level of the tool to be implemented and adopted globally. So we now have 5 teams remaining in the competition, and of course we're all going to be shortly seeing each of these in some additional detail compared to last time. Really important for us to thank the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development and the UNCCD Secretariat Syngenta Soil Leadership Academy for their generous support of this competition. And they're providing some of the prizes which you can all win, but I'll reiterate that the greatest prize here really is the opportunity to have a global impact on an issue of critical importance to the sustainability of our environment and to the livelihoods of millions and probably billions of people. So it's an important thing that we're doing here. Congratulations to you all for making it this far, and good luck with the remainder of the presentation. I'll talk to you later on. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks very much, Neil, for that inspirational introduction here. And let me just go on to tell you a little bit about the structuring today of our sneak preview. So as you know, we'll be dividing this into different segments, and those segments will be 25 minutes in total. The competitors will have exactly 15 minutes to present your sneak preview. After the presentation, we will then have 10 minutes combined for expert, jury, and attendee questions. Those question and answer segments will be moderated by one of our team members here and alternating roles. The time frame is tight, so please be aware. Please be succinct with your questions. If you have some comments, please be brief and to the point, just so that we have enough time so that everyone's perspective can be brought in when appropriate. So those are the kind of framework for our presentations for what's coming up. And let's just take a look at an overview who we'll be hearing from today. Well, we've got all the teams, as I mentioned before, 3 of the proposals, 3 sneak previews from the first 3 teams, N, L, J, and then we'll have a brief break. After that break, then we'll be coming back to the proposals from Team I and Team F. So that's the kind of order of presentations that we'll be seeing. And we're going to start with Team N, and it will just take me a second to upload that presentation here, and I will be advancing the slides, so please tell me when you would like me to advance. And Pythagoras, you are going to be first, so yeah, from Team N. And are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
One
you.
second while I upload. And here we can see when I stop sharing all the wonderful people who've joined us today. And now you should be able to see your presentation. Can you just confirm that you can see that?
Yes. I
Okay.
can see it. Okay. So thank you. We will present a sneak preview of our tool entitled Loop for LDN, which is a user-centered geography is informatics tool for land users planning towards land degradation neutrality. Our implementation team is led by SAIO and comprises experts in agriculture and sustainable land management, land preservation and conservation, and capacity building for sustainable land management. It also has the support of multiple stakeholder representatives from key regions of interest, contributing with their experience and expertise. Next slide, please. The first step for defining the scope and functionality of our tool was to concretize the key user problems to be tackled. We followed a stakeholder engaging process based on remote interviews with national stakeholders in land use planning. The interviews addressed 2 main user groups, legal land use planners, that is relevant departments of ministries responsible for LUP, and supporters of land use planners from the scientific community, that is research institutes and universities for capacity development in LUP. The interviews aim to identify key stages and actors in the loop process, identify difficulties faced in real-world LDN in planning storylines, and ultimately define tool functionalities and expected tool outcomes. The core outcomes of the engaging process was the need to have a rational prioritization of the areas where LDN-informed land use planning is crucial, and of the LU types and land management technologies that are applicable to different contexts. Furthermore, the main expectation from the tool was the ability to promote optimal and feasible LU change trajectories that met the LDN targets. Next slide, please. To meet these needs, Loop for LDN integrates LDN into participatory land use planning through a user-friendly interface that helps users formulate and evaluate land use and land management transition scenarios, providing visual representations of impacts such as LD gains, losses, and trade-offs. To introduce LDN mechanisms into land use planning, Loop for LDN acquires maps of past land degradation, anticipates future land degradations, helps users to identify sustainable land management practices to avoid, reduce, or reverse land degradation best suited to their region of interest, and formulate corresponding scenarios and supports users on the evaluation and comparison of the multidimensional impacts of such scenarios. Finally, Loop for LDN addresses and presents crucial trade-offs in land use and land management related to different land capital and ecosystem services outcomes like soil conservation, biodiversity, sociocultural impact, and climate change mitigation. Towards this, uses and evaluates various SLM impact indicators from VOCAT and ELD. Next slide, please. The core characteristics of Loop for LDN can be summarized as follows. It is designed following a fully participatory process to integrate expert knowledge and provide visual outputs suitable for its users. It aspires to be applicable everywhere, independently of the geographical and administration unit targeted by the user. It is based on state-of-the-art tools like VOCAT's SLM framework, the global leader, which is the global leader in SLM databases, providing an innovative way to anticipate new land degradation. It integrates VOCAT with GOC so as to properly contextualize sustainable land management practices. It adopts methods and knowledge from the ELD framework and stakeholders to evaluate SLM impact on ecosystem services. And finally, it is built on an state-of-the-art open source solution to strengthen its sustainability and extensibility. Next slide, please. We organize a Loop for LDN user's journey in 6 key steps, each step requiring a concrete and distinct supporting functionality from the tool. Specifically, the users need tool functionalities to assist them on defining their LDN problem, assessing land use suitability, identifying opportunities for land usage or land management changes, ranking these alternatives, observing the land usage or land management trajectories for each option, and finally obtaining a visual representation of the LDN impact of each choice. At each step, users are supported by a Loop for LDN for the actions described in a detailed user journey depicted in the relevant mirror diagram available online at the presented link. Next, please. At each stage, different modules of Loop for LDN are activated and used, with the prominent components being Trench Earth, GOC, and the VOCAT database. Now, next, please. Thank you. Now a few words on how Loop for LDN users can generate land use planning scenarios consistent with LDN. For each mapping unit, a matrix is generated, which includes current land use types as main rows and timing milestones along the transition period as columns. Land use types, such as grazing land, cropland, etc., are based on the land use type stratification requested by the LDN framework as seen in Figure 1. In a participatory fashion, users define sub-rows of business as usual and improved land management types within each land usage type, as per the like-for-like mechanism introduced by the LDN framework and depicted in Figure 2. And the corresponding actual, expected, or wished progressing surface areas in year 5, 10, and year 20. Note that the participatory process allows users to formulate scenarios of both land management and land use type change, as we clearly stated so far. Changes in land usage or land management level may bring about inherent univocal changes in land cover, land productivity, soil organic carbon, and other land indicators, and so on, therefore imply land degradation or land improvement. For this reason, the tool refers to land use and land management combinations, and also explicitly addresses land use transitions, enabling users to evaluate such scenarios in terms of LDN. Next, please. Next, the tool. Here, okay, thank you. Next, the tool translates user-built scenarios into LDN scenarios and visualize the range of via maps and spider diagrams based on the metrics of the SDG 15.3.1 indicator. Next, please. Loop for LDN development foresees three major milestones. The minimum viable product for Loop for LDN, a beta version, and finally a full-fledged Loop for LDN prototype. The concept and approach for the Loop for LDN MVP was validated via a pilot implementation for a large catchment in the Zakwan Governorate of Tunisia during November 2016. The specific needs to be covered by the MVP and thus the critical functionalities to be implemented were assessed in the context of the stakeholder engaging process through remote interviews with stakeholder representatives. The beta version of the tool will incorporate the basic functionalities for the first three stages of the user journey, integrating the main assets of Loop for LDN, that is Trench Earth, GOC, and VOCAT. In more detail, the beta version will provide all the core building blocks for realizing the Loop for LDN user's workflow, starting from loading a global current land degradation map and defining the area of interest, proceeding to configuring land usage or land management parameters, and comparing current and anticipated land degradation for that area. At the next step, the user can define the area where LDN principles will be applied, and by using GOC, the user can extract and match socio-ecological context so as to identify applicable land usage or land management options by combining GOC and VOCAT information for the area of interest and access anticipated LD, land degradation, for each option using Trench Earth. The overall flow within the tool is modeled via a set of wireframes that are currently we currently work on their extension and refinement and are available through also the provided link. Building on the beta version, the final loop for the LDN prototype will incorporate the following functionalities across each step: a projection mechanism of new land degradation based on VOCAT indicators, visualizations for the current land usage or land management, and potential new land degradation. The option to define utility or trade-off weights for ranking the different options, as well as a mechanism for auto-ranking these options based on the user-defined weights. Finally, it will also provide the functionality to generate LU. Previous slide, please. Thank you. Finally, it will generate land usage and the land management transition matrices using the available option and will plot impact indicators for its transition trajectory. And at the last step, the tool will provide visual analytics supporting the choices made through different maps and spider diagrams. Next, please. Regarding our project progress and status, we are approaching the middle of the preliminary phase, and so far we are slightly ahead of the schedule as we have finalized stakeholder requirements. We have reached an advanced stage of completeness for our wireframes, and we have already proceeded to the integration of existing assets, starting with GOC and VOCAT. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll switch back. We're going to be moving into the question and answer segment. Let me just stop sharing here.
Thank you very much, Pythagoras, for the presentation. This is now the time to encourage everyone, the attendees, to open the Q&A panel and to type their questions. Please indicate the letter of the proposal or team which you are addressing. And also a call to our experts and jury members within this session to please open your participants panel and raise your hand. You'll have the option in front of your name to raise your hand if you have a question or a comment to the team that just presented, to Team N. I have the question and answers panel open now. Let me now start the time as well, to make sure that we give an equal chance to all the teams. We ask you to use the Q&A panel to the audience instead of the chat function, because it's much easier to manage the Q&A. But let me open also the chat. And yes, and there's a question from a participant. Yes, please. If you are a panelist, and that is the case, to Dr. Sharifa, that is the case, you should open the participant panel, and in front of your name, you will see a little hand. That means that when you raise your hand, I'll be able to see that. Well, all the organizers will be able to see that, and will give you the floor. I see that Alex, one of the jury members, has raised his hand. So please, Alex, the floor is yours.
Definitely. Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Pythagoras, for the presentation. I had a question. I think it was on around your slides 8 and 9, when you were discussing how users would generate, I think the title is How Do Users Generate LDN Consistent Land Use Planning Scenarios? Can you explain in a bit more detail how once those scenarios are defined, you mentioned that then there will be some conversion from that scenario to what the resultant change would be in the LDN indicators? Can you explain in a bit more detail how you go from the scenarios to the projected changes in the LDN indicators themselves?
Yeah. The users start from the observation of the current land degradation for an area. The question is, first of all, to identify another area where an equivalent can be reached, so as to reach the goal of land degradation neutrality. What the system should do in order to support those experts is twofold. On one hand, the tool needs to support them on understanding the impact on the area that they want to change or modify a parameter. Either this is the land usage, or this is a change in the future for the land management in a desired area, and also to find another area that you can take measures in order to balance the potential land degradation of the envisioned new usage or the envisioned new land management. In order to do that, we match the socio-ecological context of the area based on the use of GeoC tool, in order to identify from the VOCAGE database approaches or uses that are applicable in the area that you want to take your counterbalance measures. And the system actually provides you, will provide you always a current view and a projected view of what will happen. The users in this matrix actually define possible futures, define different scenarios of what they want to achieve in the land, in the area of their interest. So in this this matrix, in the matrix of the slide 8, they define, for example, that for the grazing land, they have two different land management approaches that currently have the balance of 80 to 20%, and they want to progressively go to a future after 20 years from now that uses only one land management approaches. These actually is an instance of the current land degradation and projected land degradations in the possible futures at the step of 5 years. By running Trends Earth, using all the different parameterization coming from the VOCAT and GOC, we will create the snapshots of what the land degradation will be for this area. And on the opposite, for approaches that are applicable in the area where you can take your counter measures, we create equivalent snapshots of possible futures so as to present them eventually to the user and take a final choice or a final decisions on where to do what.
Thank you, Pythagoras. Thank you, Alex, as well. I see another raised hand by Dr. Sharifa, and I'll unmute you. But I see that you also wrote your question. The question to Pythagoras is your system based on a geographic information system? I'm taking the liberty to translate here.
Yeah, behind the scenes, we will, at the back end, we will use GEO server, and we will integrate the scripts coming from Earth Trend as an input. Also, we will export to Trends Earth compatible formats. And internally, also, we will create connections to the GOC tool and to VOCAT database. This is a work that we have already started, integrating to and from GOC and VOCAT.
Thank you, Dr. Sharifa. Was that the question that you wanted to ask? You still have your hand raised. Just to check. I guess so. You are unmuted. Alex, I see you've raised your hand again. Go ahead, please.
I'll just keep taking the floor.
It's fine, it's fine.
So I had one other question on, I think it was your last slide. Can you clarify, is it correct? So of course we're in December and the plan is for the COP to be held early next year. Is it right that by the COP, so the current status looks like that's the first month, which is ahead of schedule, which is amazing. Preliminary phase, it says it's 3 months. Is it correct that everything on the left hand of that slide is what would be completed by the COP with the right hand after?
This is the correct reading, and the right column actually defines the process that we will follow for the full-fledged prototype. Because the idea from moving from the beta version to the full-fledged prototype is not just to extend its functionalities, but to have a prototype version that has been piloted in real settings, and also to organize some capacity building and training workshops, educating our users on how to use the tool and create also all the supporting material for its usage.
And is it right then that the front end development would only happen after the COP, or would there be?
No, it will be created in 2 phases. For the beta version, we will have a full-fledged UI, but for the functionalities covered by the beta version, whereas we will have a second extension for the front end covering all the functionalities of the Envision tool. You may have a grasp idea of how the tool would look like, how the draft tool would look like. If you follow the link that we provided, I think it was in slide 6. Sorry, in slide 11, sorry. So in slide 11, if you follow this link, we have used a tool which is called mockups, where we have created our Envision mockups, describing how the tool would look like. It has some small interactivity, so some buttons are active, so you can press and go to the next web page, and you can get a feeling of how the tool would look like in reality. And this is what we will have in our hands for the beta version of the tool.
Thank you.
And this is an open, it's a public link where you can see, observe, and if you have some feedback, positive or negative, we will be more than happy to hear it and take it into account in our developments.
Thank you very much, Alex. I see that we are coming close to the end of the time. The 10 minutes are up, but you were fast delivering our presentation. So I'm just going to read out very quickly a question that has come in. At which scale are you working? And in Tunisia especially, which study area are you focused on? And I'm going to ask you to be very succinct.
We focus on two different areas, on Tunisia and Burkina Faso. However, the tool will be applicable globally.
Thank you very much, Pythagoras. You were very efficient. I am still going to unmute or ask Mariam to unmute and to be very brief in your question or comment, Mariam. Hello, good morning.
Good morning to everybody. Hello. Very brief question. Who will be getting capacity building training courses to use this tool? And how will you ensure an outreach mechanism that people after the project ends continue to have the possibilities to be trained to use the tool? Thank you.
We will start with representatives in our own group, where we have representatives for the relevant ministries, both for Tunisia and from Burkina Faso. We have representatives from the Ministry of Agriculture and from the Ministry of Environment from Burkina Faso. We have also representatives from the National Research Institute in Gref from Tunisia. So firstly, we will target capacity building using them as representative users, so as to be sure that all the guidance, all the material that we will create is ready to be used by non-technical people, but people that actually they are working on this problem in reality, in real life.
Thank you, Pythagoras. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Pythagoras. Yeah, very good discipline here. And we're going to go on now to Team L. And Vanya, I'll invite you to turn on your video, turn on your microphone, and just tell me when you would like to advance the slides, and I'll do that for you. And we cannot hear you yet, Vanya.
Hello?
Yes, now I can hear you, yes. There
Okay.
you are.
Have you, sorry. Okay, so the presentation is on?
Yes.
Great. So hello, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm Vanya Westerberg from Altus Impact. I'm thrilled together with my team to show you our progress with respect to the development of our land degradation neutral software tool. In our team today, we have, you can change slide, Simon Reynolds, who's a full stack software developer, Luis Costa as well, who's a biophysical modeler. And in our consortium, we have Ronald Lefranc, who's a representative from the Partenariat du Développement Local, a Haitian NGO that has worked more than 25 years to spread agroecological practices in the northern part of Haiti. We also have Daniel Banuku with us on the call today, Deputy Director for CCOT, who works to promote sustainable land management and farmer-managed natural regeneration in the Upper West region of Ghana, as well as Sakari Isa, who's a physical land use planner at the Laura and Nanda municipalities, also from the Upper West region of Ghana. CCOT and PDL are partners of Groundswell International, an international umbrella organization which groups more than 10 civil society organizations across the world to help strengthen farmer organizations and scale up sustainable land management practices. Each of these users have their distinct problems that they'd like to see solved or helped to solve through the tool. And the consultations with them have been fundamental to developing our first prototype that we're going to show you today. On this note, I'll give the floor to René Lefranc that we have recorded because of time zone differences from Haiti to understand more their problem statement. So that's next slide. Thank you.
All right. So in recent decades, land degradation has been a critical concern, mainly for Haiti, and poses serious threats to the livelihoods of Haitian farmers, where widespread of deforestation, particularly in the hillsides, has led to regular flooding, advanced soil erosion, and progressive declines in agricultural productivity.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear that? Let me just
On
try.
the other hand, there has been high competition of available land, with increased demands for housing, infrastructure, mining, tourism, and farming. Hence, there is an urgent need for an effective monitoring framework to help inform land use planning decisions, make optimal trade-off, and meet LDN targets for Haiti. One of PDL's key strategic objectives is to improve food security through regeneration of degraded farmland, diversify farm income, and revive forest resources in order to equip peasant farmers with adapted skills and practices that can mitigate the impacts of the advanced land degradation in the country, and allowing them to not only increase their production, but also to have diverse sources of food and income all year round. With the impacts of climate change affecting more and more people and getting more and more visible in the rural areas, one of our objectives is also to increase resilience to climate change, specifically in this micro-region of the north, in the north of the country, through the restoration of vulnerable mountain ecosystems, with continuous efforts to reduce runoff, flash floods, and landslide. Another important priority for PDL also is to document and systematize our work to be able to demonstrate to local, regional, and national decision makers that agroecological farming contributes to objectives of land degradation neutrality and disaster risk resilience using objective metrics. And this is where I think we really need this kind of tool that can be very powerful to demonstrate to the policymakers how we can transition to sustainable.
Thank you very much. And so on from that, we go on to our other stakeholder group, or CCOT.
And eventually that can help us to secure policy support and finance for more long-term interventions in agroecological farming and sustainable land management.
Perfect. Next slide. Okay. I don't know why it was breaking
It's a little
up.
tricky. I don't know why either. I'm stopping it. But there we go. That's the thing. Okay, go ahead.
And as for CCOT in the Upper West region of Ghana, their situation is somewhat similar to that of PDL. They're concerned with improving food security through sustainable land management, but they want to ensure that the investments are well-spent money. Also that of current national reforestation programs going on in Ghana. That means ensuring and targeting land restoration activities to where they're likely to be long-lasting. So in communities where communities are better at managing fire risks, and in areas where you can also build climate change, resilience to climate change disaster risks. And CCOT would also like to use the tool to provide objective results-based evidence that sustainable land management can contribute to land degradation neutrality, and help as a way to push for introducing more sustainable land management policy like initiatives in Ghanaian agricultural policies. Finally, also talking with land use planner SAC from the Upper West region of Ghana. They're calling for a mapping tool that allows them to understand better what's going on at the field. They will often earmark an area for, let's say, settlement, forest, or educational purposes and realize, there's actually some farming going on there, something they cannot observe just on the basis on a one-shot satellite imagery or a drone. And here we think as well, our tool can be helpful in that we can show NDVI patterns change over the year and therefore be able to say something about what's actually going on. So that can be really powerful, I think, for municipal land use planners. So we're taking these into consideration in the development of our tool. And finally, as for Groundswell International, next slide, please, who's supporting some 10 civil society organizations across the world with scaling up their sustainable land management practices. Our LDN tool would be a powerful entryway to better monitor and evaluate the progress of their partner organizations, and also communicate to larger international stakeholder groups what are the real impact of what's happening on the ground, also helping create enabling policy frameworks for land degradation neutrality at the national and the international level. With no further ado, I'd like to give the word to Luis, who's going to talk a little bit more about what the tool is. So on to you, Luis.
Thank you, Vanya. And on the next slide, I will take you through our user journey, reflecting on some of the problem statements that Vanya mentioned above, and mapping also the journey on the overall framework of our tool. So in order for you to recall on the next slide, our tool engages users in an iterative cycle consisting of visualizing degradation trends, identifying areas where to intervene, are these areas degrading, stable, or improving, and also planning interventions attending to particular trade-offs. So as we move on the next slide, on step 1 of our user journey, PDL has secured funding to expand its land rehabilitation plan and now wants to identify a region in Haiti, where it's very active, to work with the mission of promoting interventions that lead to no net loss. So the first task, the user selects the country in our tool and the time horizon in which it wants to base the analysis. I want to mention that in the tool we have global coverage, and the user can very easily select time frame and adapt this to modify its analysis. This is very interesting because it will allow the user to make comparisons between and after the particular interventions have been made, which was one of the problem and statements mentioned before. I would also like to mention that the tool is actually running as a concept proof. It's cloud-based, which can raise some issues where connectivity of internet is low, but we will try to find ways to overcome this. So on the step 2, the user is guided to the country, on the next slide, where it gets immediately a visual overview from green to orange of the region's status in terms of land degradation in the country it wants to do the interventions. It also receives on the right-hand side of the map overview of the percentage of land that is currently being degraded as within the framework of the SDG 15.3.1. I want to mention that in the prototype for now, only the sub-indicator of land cover change is calculated according to the methodology in Earth Trends. So all results from now on will be based on this indicator, but as we move on forward with the development of the tool, all the indicators will be pulled in, but this is just a proof of concept. So on step 3, the user now gets more details on the quantitative information of the mainland conversion taking place in the area of interest it's selected. And we can see on the right-hand side what are the major land use transitions taking place on that region of interest. On the next slide, on step 4, the users can now better identify spatially in more detail which areas are suitable for intervention. We can see here the areas highlighted in red on a pixel level are the areas where the land degradation has been more strongly occurring. The ones in yellow where the things are stable, and the ones in green where things are improvement. So the user can now go a little bit in more detail and visualize these trends. So being done that, the user moves on to step 4 on the next slide, on step 5 on the next slide, where here I recall the problem statement also from Vanya. The institution wants to make sure that any intervention that will be put into place has the chance of being permanent. So it doesn't want it to be threatened by particular risks. In the case of our user consultations, the risk of forest fire. So the tool caters for this by providing risk layers in addition to the land degradation trends we saw before, so the user can see if in that particular area a particular risk is pressing or not. In this case, as you can see the fire risk map on the red shades, the area seems particularly free out of that. So there's little risk that intervention will be hindered by the risk of fires in that region. On step 6, on the next slide, other contextual information will be provided, for example, terrain slopes, which might or might not hinder some particular interventions to be done. Moving on the user journey, on the next slide, we move out of identifying the regions, which we did before, and the user gets into the phase of our tool of planning for the intervention. And here, the user will be able to create a custom scenario for the region of interest, where, next slide, he will be able to adjust values according to the desired objectives. For example, he will be used to set land use trajectories that she or he wants to see realized, or application of certain sustainable land use practices for a region, like water conservation or water storage and things like that. Now, from this step on, the tool is a little bit more conceptual, but the vision is that on the final step, in the next slide, the user will be presented with a trade-off matrix side by side to the map we've seen before, comparing the relevant metrics for the interventions that they selected to be implemented in the region versus those that would come from a continuation of the past trends in land degradation, noticed here by the BAU, business as usual scenario column. So the user will be able to edit information on some of the metrics, for example, unit costs of the intervention in case the user has better information than we have, and also maybe some expected benefits of the intervention could also be better adequate for the region. Nevertheless, the tool will cater that some initial information is there as a first iterative process, and this information will be carried on from either global or other external data sources that we will include in the tool. So, and that concludes the user journey.
So thank you, Luis. I think we're a bit behind on time, so we'll jump ahead to the next slide. Yeah, please.
I believe this tool.
Oh. Thank you. So we'll take you through some of the functionalities of the current prototype, as you've heard from Luis, and what the future holds. So if we can move through to the next slide. We're at a very exciting stage at the moment where we have a working prototype in the hands of our end users, which contains, as you've heard already, the 3 core elements of our tool: the visualize, the identify, and the planning stage. Now, once we've gathered some more feedback from our end users, we'd like to open up the beta version to further end users in early January. And so Vanya will add to the chat a link or an email address to contact us should you like to be included in this next stage. So yeah, to cover, we're ahead of plan. We've got in, as Luis mentioned before, global coverage from the start. And I'd like to take you through some of the next things which are planned for the final version of the prototype in the next slide. So here we'll look to really build upon what we have today to incorporate forecasted data, additional analysis layers so land planners can identify areas of interest and importance to them, an import and export functionality, and enhancing the trade-off analysis, linking back to the slide that Luis presented with that trade-off matrix. And if we can move on to the final slide. So this is the project plan we presented to you in the previous pitch, and I'm very happy to say we're ahead of schedule. We've completed the proof of concept and it's in the hands of our stakeholders. We've actually gone above that and been able to incorporate some of the filter layers. And the final thing I'd like to draw your attention to here is the 2021 roadmap, where we will be looking to incorporate support for private data sets and enhancing the front end there. Thank you for joining us, and we'll open the floor to questions.
I should also mention that Daniel Benuco from CCOD is also with us on the call in case you have questions to an end user. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your presentation, Team L, and apologies for the technical glitches with the audio. I don't think it was in Michael's control to stop it and restart it, but it went okay. I think we all got the message. So I will now open up the floor for any question from our experts and jury members. And in that case, please raise your hand if you have a question. For the attendees, I would ask you please to use the Q&A question and answer window, which you should find at the bottom of my screen. I don't know on your screen if it's in the same location. I see we have already 2 hands up from our panelists. I will give the floor to Mariam first.
Yes, thank you very much for this presentation. I have a concrete question regarding the visualization aspect emerging from your tool. You will be providing the visualization based on the indicators, land coverage, as I understand. My question, what about the drivers of these changes? Is any information at any point being provided on the drivers of change in order to come up with options for future sustainably managed land management systems? Thank you.
I can start, and I think my team will support if needed. In terms of visualizations, we focused on presenting in the form of maps, but we are very aware through the consultations also with the users that other forms of visualizations will be needed. Something that tracks more things in time or comparisons or things like that. So we are aware of that. On the issue of the drivers, which is a bit more tricky, that's certainly interesting, and the composite indicator that we will have in the end that we didn't show here in full will already cater for that at some extent. So if the driver of the degradation is the land conversion part, then the action has to be different if the driver of degradation is the loss of productivity side of the indicator. So there are the 3 components of the indicator: the productivity, the land use, and the carbon part. So according to which one is driving the degradation, then there will be, the intervention has to be catered for that. What the best we can do, what we will be able to do is, instead of not only showing the core aggregated indicator, but to show the subcomponents, because then it is possible for the user to better decide if an action should be targeted or not, depending if the driver is the land conversion. This maybe includes getting some policy restriction on some kind of land conversion, for example, from urban to cropland, or if on the other side, the driver of degradation is something dealing with productivity, for example, some climatic trend that is happening there. So by disaggregating, I think, the indicators, we will be at least able to provide some entry points for that.
And as well, linking to the request by the physical land use planner in Lara district, the tool will also be set up such that it will be easier for land use planners to understand what is going on at a given area in time at a given place. So if you've got, basically, we're talking about farmland, and if you're seeing then a declining productivity over time, then most likely this is related to unsustainable farmland management practices.
Thank you very much. I have Alex next on my list.
Thanks, Sarah, and thank you, Vanya and team. I had a question on I think it was the final matrix that was output by the tool. There were a number of rows in there having to do with crop revenues, dollars per hectare, SLM implementation costs. Can you tell me what the source is for that information, and whether that's something that will initially apply to Haiti and Ghana, or is that something that you're envisioning having be available globally in the initial version of the tool?
Again, I can start, or Vanya, you want to start? As I think I mentioned in the end, we want to provide at least some entry point on some of these metrics, either sourced by global data sets or by some kind of regional information that might not be particular for the Haiti, but maybe for the region around Haiti. So in order to answer your question, yeah, some of these metrics will be probably global, where we don't have better information, but others will be for the region or for the country if there's any information available. But we want to provide at least some entry points, and then we will allow the user to also reflect some knowledge of the area that she or he might have. And yeah.
Shall I move on to the next question, or Vanya?
Sorry, we're sitting in the same room and it's creating some really confusion for the computers. He was just talking into the wrong computer here. Sorry.
Sorry about that. We've also got the internet about to be cut out here, so it's all good. So just to build on that and saying a general vision is to have defaults, but then enable technical users to be able to change those and adapt the data to better suit their region of interest.
So defaults, we can use FAO global data for major crops, VOCAT database for some cost estimates of sustainable land management practices. We're going to also divide yield estimates, estimates of crop yields on the basis of net primary productivity that's been calibrated. And yeah, so I think we have in our first proposal, we have the list of all the different the external data sources we're going to draw on to populate that matrix.
Thank you very much. Neil, you are next. I have 3 more questions, so I hope we can keep them question and answer short.
Yeah, sure. Look, this is via Astrid, really. And she asks, in your user journey, you are showing different steps that a land use planner would use when using your tool. Can you tell us a little bit more about your user and the interaction that you already had with them? You said you had somebody on the line who's a stakeholder who's working. Is that right? Maybe it'd be good to hear from them about how you've engaged with them, how they feel you've engaged with them, and how they think the tool is looking.
So Daniel, the floor is yours. Daniel.
And we have about 3 minutes left.
I have to unmute my mic a little bit there. Thanks. My organization, CCOD, and ELD have had a very long-lasting relation, doing some work around. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Daniel.
Hi, Vanya.
We can all hear you.
We can hear you, Daniel. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Apparently Daniel's having some audio trouble.
Oh, great.
There's a delay, Daniel. Could you just be succinct, please?
All right. So I think we've had a long-lasting relation, doing some work around land degradation, and right from the beginning, I think we've had a number of calls and discussions to look at what the issues are. And clearly from our side, the Upper West region is one of
Daniel, there are dropouts. I would suggest turning off your video.
Very vulnerable environments, very fragile. We have a single rainfall pattern, and recently, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Daniel, we can hear you. I suggest turning off your video. We're having some bandwidth problems from your end, so please turn off your video and please be succinct. We only have about a minute left.
Can I make
Is it better now?
Michael, can I make
Yes.
a suggestion? Maybe Daniel could type in an answer in the chat so that we have an answer to that question, and we move on to the last question we have.
Yeah, I think we should extend maybe another minute. Thank you, Sarah. Good idea.
Okay, so Daniel, please type in your answer into the chat if possible. And I would move on to the last question I have from the expert, at least via raised hand, from Mariano.
Thank Yes, Sarah. So thank you very much for the presentation. Based on the mockups that the beta version that you showed, it seems to be a Google Earth Engine app. And I was wondering, how do you plan on handling sort of privacy issues? Are users going to have to create accounts? Will their settings be saved? Will there be an option for using local data? How do you envision that part in terms of sensitivity and storage of data?
Yes, so John's question, we are using Google Earth Engine in order to hold private data in the next stage of the prototype. A user would be required to create an account to hold that as an asset under their own account. The longer term vision, which we see should we proceed further in the competition, is actually to build out a custom front end and ability for that data to be more easily added and incorporated into the tool. So we're working with Google Earth Engine so we can have a quick turnaround with our prototypes and we can take in the user feedback and make those changes, but that comes with certain constraints, which is one you've just identified here.
Thank you very much. I think the time is now over, right? However, you have a couple more questions in the chat, so you may want to use the remaining time to respond to those questions while we move on to the next team. Thank you very much to Team L.
Thank you, Sarah. With the time pressures on, thank you for moderating that. And thank you, Simon, for recognizing that time was running out and shortening the presentation appropriately. That was great time management. And now we're going to hear from Proposal J. And Hilda, are you ready?
Yes. Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Hilda Manzi, presenting Proposal J, Suitability Mapping and Evaluation of Ecosystem Service, the SUMBES tool. Next slide, please. So our team is comprehensive. Being the team leader, I have others that are not on this slide, but I would like to recognize Viola, who is an environmental engineer working behind the scenes. And we also have Shimles Tades from Ethiopia, who has been helping a lot with the modeling. And then we have a subnational stakeholder team. We have Jamlek Dambiri, a forest planning and information system manager working at the Kenya Forestry Service. We have Dr. Charles Lange, the Deputy Director, Environmental Planning and Research and Coordination. And then Mr. Obadia Mungai, very passionate about natural capital-based valuation, very keen on ecosystem service valuation. And just to speak a bit about these users, I'd like to say that a part of these users are in the technical backstopping agency for LDN in Kenya, and were very instrumental in the very many meetings that we have been able to hold and put up this and also make improvements. It is significant to also note that the lead agencies are also involved in integrated national land use guidelines, where they lead other agencies in coming up with guidelines as to how they should plan and implement their project. And at the end of it, we get something we call the State of Environmental Report. Next slide, please, where I'd like to invite Mr. Obadia Mugai to give us the user journey.
Thank you, Hilda.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you, Hilda. So I want to present the problem statement for us as the National Environment Management Authority, and also for us as a country, and also as the user for the envisaged tool. So one of the problems that we face is that the demand for food and industrialization poses a challenge. The implementation of national land soil conservation mechanisms put in place. I think we also have lack of evidence-based information to adequately plan for land use. And also the challenges in the quantification of LDN sub-indicators for reporting. The other challenge I would also want to mention is based on fuel, use of wood fuel. Statistics from the Ministry of Energy in Kenya indicate that more than 90% of the rural households use firewood for cooking and heating, and 8% of the urban households use charcoal. And it's not therefore surprising that respiratory-related diseases are the leading killer in Kenya. And thus, the demand for wood fuel and charcoal makes it difficult for rehabilitation of degraded drylands forests in arid and semi-arid lands. And also, it has the conservation efforts have not received enough support in the magnitude that we would envisage. Next slide, please. So we are elated for this tool to come on board, or to have this full tool done. And we hope, and what we envisage the tool to help solve includes that the tool will enhance the implementation of the national land use guidelines and the reporting on the state of the environment, as Hilda has mentioned. And then also the tool will also help address the stakeholder needs in the land use trade-offs, especially in big projects. Of course, ensuring that there are reduced environmental and social and any other impacts, any negative impacts, and of course, cascading, magnifying the positive impacts. Then the tool will also help us visualize the levels of impacts and the conflicting land uses in the decision-making process. Then the tool shall also help us establish the value of natural capital base, the natural base capital while undertaking the trade-offs. Then finally, that the tool will also help us model and report on the LDN sub-indicators. So over to you, Linda. Hilda.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So you can zoom in a little bit for me, Michael. So what is this tool? This is the SUMVES tool, an idea that has been born through conception framework, where we have been able to provide a solution for land degradation neutrality alternative through the operation of land use planning and ecosystem service valuation. In this tool, I'd like to basically give the backend and the front end through the SUMVES Outlook, where the first icon there gives you the option of logging in through the Google Earth Engine, a semi-automated user interface that we have developed that can enable one to log in and be able to actually pick a satellite imagery and enable one to pick training areas to undertake a classification. Once that is done, then this fits into the next level of land suitability mapping, where in this case we have developed a file, a type standard file that embeds all the global indicators and international standards when it comes to land suitability mapping. So that what makes this different from the normal land use planning tool is that the files or the data sets are not inbuilt, but we have developed a type standard file that can be able to be integrated with any data input that you have. And the reason why we have done this is so that we can be able to have a tool that can give us a global outlook as well as regional and a site-specific outlook that we need to undertake a land suitability mapping. So these standards we have considered are those that are required for agriculture under the FAO land suitability. We have development where various standards have been recommended, and then we also have the conservation aspect. And for us to develop these types of standards is a process of sitting down with the key stakeholders to be able to come up with a big outlook. And one of the things we'd like to point out at this stage is that as we do the standards and we input them, we are looking at standards that can enable us be guided by the LDN hierarchical process, where you look at avoid, restore, and avoid, reduce, and restore, sorry. So that now once you have all the data input there, you can be able to come up with an agriculture suitability, a development, and a conservation aspect suitability maps that one can visualize. The next process is actually to overlay the maps. You overlay the maps so that you can be able to understand what are the conflicting areas, what are the non-conflicting areas. Once the conflicting areas have been highlighted, those are the steps that we need to move on to the next step so that we can be able to identify how do we solve these conflicts. And we solve these conflicts through a preference analysis that is guided by a no net loss criteria, where we have weights in 3 categories: high, intermediate, and low. So we come up with 4 scenarios. Under an HP process, you can have as many scenarios we have. But in this tool, we are opting for 4 options that will give us a no net loss scenario under agriculture, under development, and under conservation, and also a moderate kind of a scenario that we can push to the next step. So once we push to the next step, this is where a lot of processes are taking place. We have the land productivity aspect there and quantification of the ecosystem services. We quantify the ecosystem services in two folds. We quantify so that we can have products that can fit into trend.earth for land change assessment. And we quantify to have products that we can evaluate and get the value of the natural base capital. So we have categorized them into three. We have the soil land productivity under provisioning, and also the net primary productivity. Then we have the soil organic carbon, where we are looking at the nutrient cycle and soil erosion control. We have the land change. We are looking at carbon sequestration, biodiversity conservation, water regulation, and air quality. And finally, we also have the livelihoods, where we are looking at the cultural services and the economic development that is meant to improve the livelihoods of people. So once we quantify that and we have the aspects that go to trends.earth and we have the aspects that we evaluate, then we end up with the four scenarios, four alternatives, where there we have written alternative A, B, C, and D, so that under these alternatives, you have a net value indicator there, and you also have a land change assessment, whether it indicates degradation or it is stable or needs improvement, so that these four alternatives now can be brought on board to the stakeholder by the technical expert who is the user, so that they can be able to make a decision which is the best option to go up with, which is the best decision that does not advocate for degradation, and as well as when we look at the natural base capital, everything has been addressed. Next slide, please. So this is the user journey. The user journey starts with the user or the technical expert being able to log in and put his details so that he can be able to have the area of interest, a GIS file describing the area where he needs to pull the satellite imagery for classification. He undertakes the satellite imagery classification, which is a supervised classification using maximum likelihood. And then next that the file is ready for land suitability mapping. The three competing land uses are brought on board: agriculture, conservation, development, so that we can be able to see where the competing land uses are taking place on the classified image. Once that has been done, we do an overlay, like he does an overlay like I've explained, so that he can be able to come up with conflicting and non-conflicting areas, so that the conflicting areas can undergo a user preference analysis. So we can be able to have four scenarios that the user can be able to work with, four scenarios to make decisions. Once these four scenarios are brought on board, the user then moves to ecosystem service quantification and valuation, which is a twofold. You quantify for aspects of land change assessment, you quantify also for valuation. So once the land change assessment has been done through trends.earth, and all these aspects are running under the QGIS open source software, we can be able to visualize the outputs under number 7, so that the user can be able to give this product to the stakeholder team to make a decision among the four alternatives or the four options, which one to go for. Next slide, please. What are the functionalities of the tool? We have three significant functionalities. One, we have a land cover classification, which is a semi-automatic process. We have built a user interface on the web where one can be able to log on details and be able to pull an image and classify. Then number 2, we have the land use planning, which is basically a suitability mapping and a preference analysis aspect, where under land suitability, we are looking at the three competing land uses for trade-offs, where weights are provided may tend to incline more towards the LDN intervention response hierarchy, which I've discussed, to avoid, reduce, and reverse degraded areas. Then we have an overlay of the land suitability to bring out conflicting and non-conflicting land use areas, where we can be able to undertake the preference analysis. Another aspect of trade-off to outline areas and come up with 4 scenarios or 4 options that we can work with for the stakeholder to make or optimize its decision. Under ecosystem services, which is the last functionality, it gives us a twofold quantification of 4 user preferred scenarios for the LDN sub-indicators, and at the same time, quantification for valuation to be able to understand the natural base capital of the area of interest. And that once that is done, we are able to come up with an LDN output or an output layer that can inform key decisions. Next slide, please. So basically this outlined what we have so far done. We have developed a user logging interface. We have a user interface where we can pull images from Google Earth and be able to undertake a classification. And then once that is done, as you can see, we have the QGIS suitability, agriculture, development, and conservation, so that once the outputs of that satellite image can undergo land suitability based on what we have discussed there, so that once that is done, we have a product, an overlaid product that is ready for preference analysis based on the criteria that I have described. Once that preference analysis takes place, then we have a product. We have 4 scenarios or 4 options that we can be able to quantify under the indicators that I've discussed that we are looking at. So that at the end of the day, we can have a product both under land change assessment and a product under valuation, giving us the natural base capital of that area where we intend to do development or where we intend to do conservation or conversion to the land use that we intend to have for within that project area. So finally, number 6 there, if you look at it, it gives you the map layout with monetary value of ecosystem service and the SDG outputs for land change assessment. Next slide, please. Which functionalities do we need to be added to arrive at the final tool prototype? We have, since we have already developed a user interface that is running on the web, we are working around the clock with the team, the programmers, so that we can see, can we be able to have a semi-automated Google Earth Engine user interface on QGIS, so that we can be able to have our tool, which is running on QGIS, all in one platform. Next slide, please.
Hilda, I don't want to interrupt, but be aware that we're close to the end of time.
Yes, next slide, please. I invite Viola to briefly take us through the work plan.
I'm afraid time is already up. Viola, would you like to very briefly tell us, let's say under a minute?
Okay, I don't know if I'll finish in a minute, but thank you, Hilda. So as you ponder on our concept, I'll take that 1 minute to take you through our project plan. So as you can see, I hope it's clear from the Gantt chart, we started the project August this year. And through that, we've been able to engage our subnational stakeholders groups throughout the process. And so far, we've been able to do documentation of the existing user systems and the frameworks. We've documented the requirements of the tools, and we were able to draw and improve the conceptual diagram with them. So under the conceptual framework redesigning, we have done database framework designs. We have done backend process designs, and we've also been able to do the user interface designs, as Hilda has been able to present. So where we are today, we're doing the sneak preview. What we are just about to do next, we are set to do an initial user evaluation of the tool, where we plan to engage our subnational stakeholders to collate all the necessary data sets and try our tool. And of course, simultaneously, we'll be documenting any arising issues. And of course, at the same time, we'll be able to set on for the refinement of the tool. As we are hopeful.
Thank you,
right.
Viola. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. Just in fairness to the other teams, we are over time here, so I would just need to have a conclusion. I'm going to advance to the question and answer session, and please do forgive me, Viola, for.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I understand.
So once again, we invite the experts and jury members to please raise your hand if you have questions or comments. And we ask all the attendees to please use the question and answers panel to type in your questions. Please remember to indicate the number, in this case, Team J. Thank you very much for your intervention. Please indicate the team number, the team letter, when you are typing. I see, Alex, you have raised your hand. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna, and also thank you, Viola and Hilda, for the presentation. I had a question on the, thank you, Hilda, for going through the detailed diagram of the tool. Given that all that was slated for still being needed is the semi-automated GEE interface. Is it right that everything that you presented on slide 5 will be present and available in the tool at the COP?
Yes. Yes, it will be available.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that quick reply. Mariano, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Hila, for the presentation. One question I had, so super interesting to include the ecosystem services. I think that the quantification is very relevant. One thing, so in the tool you have, you're going to be creating these suitability maps and then identify based on the conflicts of these suitability maps, if I understood correctly, the different scenarios. What I was wondering is how would the neutrality, the land degradation neutrality sort of framework feed into that? So in terms of what is the baseline of the land degradation that countries have made and how will neutrality be achieved? Could you explain that a little bit better?
If I could go a little bit back to the land suitability, I'd said that there's something that we are considering. And if I could give an example of, let's say, we need land to expand into agricultural areas. You understand that there are various international land suitability criteria that would follow. But what we are saying in these typeset standards that we are developing to be the backend process of this tool is considering some of the LDN hierarchy approach of avoid, reduce, and restore. So for example, I would give you a place where maybe rainfall and climate would be given more weight. You'd realize in this case would give more weight to like areas of low soil organic matter. We'll look at things like erodibility factors such that at the end of the day, it's like we are looking at areas of degradation not to be proposed for agriculture like would have been the case, because we are putting more weight into LDN factors than as well as considering the global indicators. Now, after we do that and we move and come up with the conflicting land uses, there's this preference analysis stage where we are looking at the no net loss scenario. How are we doing that? We are looking at conservation. We are looking at, let's say we have issues of conservation and agriculture. We are weighting it by having a weight that would give more preference for conservation, as well as ensure that we accommodate agriculture within that aspect, so that when we undergo the stage of quantification of the LDN indicators, we expect that the output will give us gains and not losses. I don't know whether I've been able to address that question very well. And also, I would like to add that under preference analysis with our users in the environmental planning, one of them who has presented here is that in the preference analysis, we are ensuring that we are integrating the national land use guidelines. So it is not just an aspect of a no-net loss scenario, but also an aspect of looking at the country guidelines to ensure these 4 scenarios that are moving forward for land change assessment and also for choice of alternative to work with. Every guideline has been adhered to.
Thank you very much, Hilda. And we still have 3 minutes left in respecting the 25 minutes per team. I don't see any other raised hands, and I don't actually see... Alex, you've raised your hand again. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I can't find the unmute button. So I guess, again, in case you can't tell, I'm focused on slide 5. Can you talk through, it seems there's a number of different users that would likely be involved in using the tool. You called out, for example, technical users who might be involved in generating the land cover classification, and then also some other experts along the way. Can you just briefly describe what it would look like in terms of the profiles of the people who would be involved in applying the tool?
The major users for application of this tool would be, as I indicated there, the subnational stakeholders that we are working with. We have technical experts within those organizations, and we have the environmental planners who are the technical experts. These are people who are also well versed in GIS that we believe are the best suited in utilizing this tool. And as you look at it, we have twofold. We have the planners under the forestry department, because we have issues in the dryland forest. And then we have the environmental planners who are the backstopping agencies for LDN in Kenya. So we're bringing those two people on board to be able to look at the land degradation issues within the country and beyond actually the country of Kenya as a tool, so that those issues, they can be able to properly use this tool to bring out the alternatives that people need to work with. So those are the two major users we are looking at.
Thank you very much, Hilda. We still have 1 minute left if there's any burning question from anyone. I don't see anything. Just for all the participants, just a quick remark. Translation is available, so you can ask questions in French and Spanish if you'd like to. Okay, and I see that a lot of people are now using the chat, which is great. When you do have a comment specific to a proposal, please indicate the proposal letter. Thank you very much.
Do we still have time for one more verbal question?
Very quickly, Neil. Please
Sure.
go ahead.
Again, this is via Astrid, but she's basically asking how will the users be able to compare the land uses, the conservation, agriculture and urban development? Will they see numbers or will it visualizations or tables? And have you worked with your end users to think about how that might best be represented?
A very quick reply, please, Hilda.
If you remember, in one of the challenges that the user highlighted was visualization is very key. So the maps have both visualization and they have numbers as indicators of something to work with.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Thank you to Team J. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you all for the respecting the time management. It is a little bit difficult. Of course, we're really interested and we want to continue in our dialogue, but just the constraints of time management often limit how much we can do that. So the chat is a great opportunity. We are going to go now to a brief coffee break, a tea break, and you can use that as you'd like, exactly 10 minutes. You can also network in the chat or do whatever you'd like. Please come back on time. And just to pick your brain, I've got another collage for you to work on during the coffee break in case you get bored. And we'll see you back here in 10 minutes, please. And again, what is the relevance of this collage to today? Okay, it's just gone 13:50 in Germany. And we'll get started. Are you back? Please give us a hello in the text chat to show you're back. And I have to announce we have a winner here, and to congratulate Gunnar Hesch, who guessed correctly that on this day in many years ago, what was it, 1799, that France declared the meter as the official unit of measure. So we have different, very good, Gunnar. I'm wondering, did you have to look that up, or did you know about it automatically just looking at the collage?
Well, I had some Googling involved, I will admit.
Okay. Great, thank you. Yeah, so a historic day, December the 10th, and we're going to resume with our historic sneak preview here. And the next is going to be Mary Grace presenting proposal 1. Thank you all for coming back on time. And Mary Grace, you've submitted a PDF, so it's going to look a little bit differently, but just going to have to switch to that, and you can start with your presentation. Just take me 1 minute. And hopefully you're all back. And hopefully you can see the PDF. Thank you for the feedback. And Mary Grace, go ahead.
Yeah. Good afternoon, GEO LDN committee, and good day, good afternoon, good evening to everyone here today. For the proposal I, we call our tool concept proposal LUPA, or Land Use Planning Assistant. Next slide, please. So my name is Mary Grace Balinos, co-founder of Triangulo Austral Ingeniería e Innovación Limitada, and my co-collaborators in this proposal are Dr. Daniel Vicente Lur Sierra, Jorge Pazmiño, and Matias Rebolledo. Our consortio is not complete without our representatives from the Responsible Consumer Cooperative La Manzana, represented by Robin Besselberg, and Kalawala Cooperative, represented by Julio Gerding. Moreover, we are happy to announce that yesterday, the Agriculture and Livestock Service under the Ministry of Agriculture in the regional level, Los Rios, has confirmed and is joining as a potential user, represented by Herman Dozelin. On the other hand, the Ministry of Housing and Urbanism at the regional level, Los Rios, has also shown interest as a potential user. Next slide, please. During these past few days, we have been meeting with the user group within our consortium and discussed their needs as a user of the tool and as a consumer of data. We have learned that as a planner, the potential user does not have the tool to quantify the land degradation in the area they are working on, since it is on the landscape level. Aside from that, another potential user that does not use GIS software often, only when needed, sees complex geospatial tools challenging to manipulate. And also, there are very few spatial planning tools that deals with small-scale planning areas. In this case, for the target users, that could be small landowners, indigenous community, private protected areas, agricultural or farm associations, among others. And the users has very limited access to internet. So as data consumers, if authorities adopt the tool, they would be willing to use it to support them in their application for the land degradation certification requirements they need to submit before embarking on new or continuing doing ongoing activities in their property. In addition, since they have a small-scale perception of space, they would like to know what is happening in the neighboring farms or properties, so it could help them understand their area or if the activities that their neighbor or themselves would affect each other. Next slide, please. In a general schematic, the proposed tool Land Use Planning Assistant or LUPA plugin is a free and open source Python module and a plugin for QGIS for its user interface, both under the GNU GPL version 3 or later license that will aid in the integration of the LDN mechanism and analysis of trade-offs with the selected land use planning model at multiple scales in addressing possible decisions or sustainable development strategy alternatives. Next slide, please. The specific configuration parameters design of the land use models will be refined during sessions of co-creation with the potential users, although we have already pre-identified some of them, including trade-off parameters that can impact the land uses. As a proof of concept, we will implement a simple land use trade-off model, and on the other hand, the LUPA configuration parameters allow the tool to adjust to the specific needs of each country, region, or community depending on the scale. In the core of the Python plugin, the land degradation neutrality trade-offs will be determined by calculating the LDN balance and applying a land use ranking, as it can be seen in the class dependencies depicted in the UML class diagram of the core Python module, which is the figure on the right. A future version of the plugin could include a more comprehensive trade-off model based on more or different variables. The tool would use the trends.earth data as a base for LDN mechanism analysis. Alternatively, degradation information from other sources, such as government agencies or scientific research groups, can be used. The degradation data will be incorporated as the base input data of LUPA. The configuration parameters will be set by the user based on scientific studies and standards set by the government that will be assigned to each land use type. Next slide, please. After our conversation with the tool user group, we have gathered that the land degradation data or information is very important to have for them. Having a plugin accessible to use in doing an exercise of possible scenarios and having additional information regarding trade-offs is something they are looking forward to. Since in land use planning, there is a part that is an iterative process. Having this tool could aid that. Using the Qt plugin designer, we have come up with some mockups which we used to prepare wireframes models of the plugin UI and showed it to our potential users. The UI wireframes can be seen in the user journey, while the mock-up screenshots will be shown later during the presentation. In our user journey, we took the case of a planner wherein he opens the LUPA from the QGIS plugin repository and selects the area of interest, then configures the parameters, then uses the results in identifying possible LDN mechanism alternatives for their planned proposal. After being satisfied with the results, he'll generate the HTML report and copy the graphs, maps, and data to his official report. This also shows that what is happening on the front end and the back end. Next slide, please. The functionalities of the tool in beta versions are preliminary GUI versions, which we discuss with users and we receive some valuable feedback. Also, we have partially implemented the core Python module in which the LDN balance calculation and simple trade-off model are in progress, and it's around 70% and around 50% respectively. Next slide, please. The proposed tool has 5 tabs. First, the input tab, where the user can define the working area and load degradation data already prepared with the trends.earth plugin or from other sources. Next slide, please. The second and third tab, scenarios and configuration, respectively. In these two screens, the user will select the map layers representing the base scenario as well as the future scenarios for the analysis. Also, the user will be able to select a ranked list of land use types and anticipate the degradation of each land use type transition. This information can be chosen from a predefined list of templates, can be modified or created from scratch using the interface, and can be saved to or imported from an XML file. The ranking of land use types represent the preferred uses for the land, and the plugin will calculate an indicator which in turn is used for our simple trade-off model. Next slide, please. The last 2 screens or tabs are for running the plugin, specifying any required runtime settings or options, and for showing the accessing the results, such as reports, raw data, and other data results. After the last meetings with the potential users, we have identified required improvements that will modify the current GUI design, which is about less than 20%. Next slide, please. A simple trade-off analysis shows the LDN balance versus the land use rank indicator for each scenario. The land use rank indicator is based on the analytic hierarchy process, or AHP, from the multi-criteria analysis by Sati et al. In the results, the closest to 0, the better. We can show the details of the calculation after the presentation if we still have time. The main idea is that the LDN balance can be plotted against the rank indicator in a way analogous to the receiver operating characteristic, or ROC curve. Each scenario will be a point in this two-dimensional space where scenarios closer to the top left corner are preferred, since they have better LDN balances and the land is assigned the land uses with higher ranking. For example, top left example, scenario 6, this is the most preferred, positive LDN balance, low land use rank indicator value. Top right, scenario 5 and scenario 6 are very good alternative scenarios. 5 is better. And on the bottom left, no scenario provides good LDN balance and good land use rank indicators simultaneously. And of course, new scenarios should be prepared. Next slide, please. Other functionalities that will be added in case we continue in the competition are to improve GUI according to the user's feedback, integrate GUI with core Python module, complete the balance calculations and simple trade-offs model, implement raw output data generation, implement report generation, implement data protection and security for handling sensitive data, and also add options for advanced users which are hidden or collapsed for normal users. Next slide, please. So this is our proposed plan that we presented the last time with the short term and the medium term. And next slide, please. So the project status is the same. So we will have those with the projected that we presented the last time. We still see that we will be achieving them in this stage. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Marie Grace. I'm checking with Michael on the time. I think we have 5 more minutes for questions, right?
We have actually, according to my time, we have 13 minutes for questions.
Very good. Okay, then I will give the floor to Neil for the first question.
Hello, sorry about that. Michael, can we have a look at those slides again for a second, please? Okay. Is it possible to do that? Sorry, there was
yes, sure. Sure.
Sorry, asking tricky questions. The cross
just have
plots.
to switch back and forth.
Yeah, okay. Keep going up. A few more slides up, please. There was the cross plots there showing this one here. Sorry, down. No, further down there was 6, 7, 8. Keep going. 9, 10, 11. I think slide 11. 11 is the one we want here. Can you, Mary Grace, can you explain to me a little bit more about how you've arrived at these particular sort of scenarios?
Yes, thank you for your inquiry. I would invite Daniel to explain more about this slide.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Neil, for your question. So, so the main idea behind this was to come up with a simple tool that our target users, which in general are the final users, not the planner, but those who are going to consume the final information. So the property owners, the farmers, and other people like them could easily understand. So we are using mostly qualitative analysis based on the multi-criteria dimension analysis with the AHP model to let the users to rank their preferred use for the land they are planning, and this ranking of uses will generate for each scenario that they propose an indicator based on their preferred use. So this indicator, which is a normalized weighted sum based on the ranking that they give to each land use type, is because it's normalized, it will be between 0 and 1, and the highest ranking is 0. So and it's the model is weighted by the rank number. So the lowest the rank indicator, the better for them. So the particular scenario will be closer to the uses that they would like to have in their own land. But the trade-off, of course, is that each land use change will produce some anticipated degradation or different levels of degradation. So if they are restoring land, probably they will get some improvement, but if not, they will produce some degradation in the land. So the other variable, which is independent of the land use rank indicator, is the output of the land degradation balance score that we will calculate using the net balance. So for each scenario, we will get the gains, the total gains and losses for the whole scenario. So with these two variables, we plot each scenario in these plots, and that's why we can see that the best combination for any scenario is to be closer to the top left area, which means improved land degradation and land use very close to the preferred uses for the person who is doing the planning. So that's the main idea. I don't know if you have any particular question about that.
Just that, so the scenarios there, the development of the scenarios is done by the end user, and they're saying, my plan is to do, in this scenario, if we say we prioritize development a little bit more than conservation in an area, this is the kind of, what is it, spatial extents of land that we're expecting to convert over a particular time frame. So does it cover the land cover types and the sub-indicators of 15.3.1? Are you drawing specifically on those?
So I'm not sure I got the question.
Well, it's really, I'm really just saying that I'm asking the question, the scenarios are being developed by the end users, and I'm asking, you know, am I correct here? The scenarios are being proposed by the end users. I don't recall seeing much of a link to the sub-indicators of 15.3.1 there, but I wonder if there's some part of the process there where you draw on that indicator.
Yeah, sure. So so the scenario preparation will be done by the users, probably with some help from an experienced user of QGIS, at least, if they don't have the technical skills to use it directly. So they will probably have some advising. So the scenarios will be basically, the basis scenario will be the current land use of their terrain. And the other scenarios will be different proposed future uses with areas indicating the next the proposed change. So the idea here is that they will be able to, according to the land use model template that they can choose, and information that they can have besides that, they will be able to put in this conversion matrix that we have, how will be the anticipated degradation for each conversion of from their basis scenario to the future scenarios. So how will that impact on the degradation balance? So if there is information from studies or from government or from different standards that they can use, they will be able to input them, or actually they will be in the templates, or they can update the templates with newer information. And that's how the information will be combined at this stage, because we have plans in the future to add more input information that can be gathered, like agrometeorological information. We will use terrain information also for the slopes, and we can, with this information, we can add restrictions to the scenarios and actually warn them that they cannot do a particular kind of land use in this area because it's not feasible. And actually, the advanced users of the planners that we have interviewed already have an interest in this, that they can add more layers of information, and that we can actually provide either restrictions or warnings, or maybe some other indicators that we can add also to the trade-off analysis, or even do some pre-calculations. But right now, all the input has to be prepared in advance and has to be loaded into the plugin.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. So we have about 3 more minutes. I'll give the floor to Alex for another question.
Definitely great. Thank you very much, Sarah. So this is actually related to the same screen that, or slide rather, that Neil was talking about earlier, the one showing the trade-off analysis and those plots. Can you tell me, have you discussed those with stakeholders so far? Have you had the chance to receive input from them? And then I guess the other part of this would be, is that what you envision as the primary output for the tool, or would there also be some more tabular or map outputs? What would it look like for an end user?
Okay, yeah, so we didn't have this yet ready for the last meeting with our users. So this tries to this proposed analysis tries to answer what we had actually talked to them. But if we continue in the competition, we will show this output to check if it has the information they need. So they haven't yet seen this, and it's not the only output. They will also have for each scenario, they will have plots showing the ranking, so how much surface area for each of the land uses they want are available in each scenario. Also, the indicators will be specified by scenario, and we also will produce maps which will show for each scenario the changes. So which part of the area will improve, which part of the land will degrade, and also we can show them which parts are preferred land uses and which are less preferred land uses. So we will complement the report with more plots and also with maps.
Thank you very much. I think we would have 1 more minute, but I don't see any other question.
Alex has his hand raised.
Yeah.
Sorry, due to lack of lowering it.
I think then time is now over, and we can move on to the next team. Thank you very much to Team I for your presentation and the answers.
Yes, thank you again, Sarah and Team I. Yes, that brings us to our last proposal of the day. I have to say, time has been flying by like nothing. And yeah, Team F with Claudio. Claudio, are you ready?
Yes, right now I have difficulty with the camera. Okay, it's coming. Well, so I can go. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury and attendees. Can we move to the next slide, please? This is our team, and this time, compared to the pitch event, we are showing all the stakeholders that are part of the team, as requested by the jury. So we have a land use planner, we have an SLM implementer, an NGO representative, and we have an expert of a technical agency of the central government. We don't show here the name of the planner because it still does not have authorization from the central government of India to be formally engaged here and to appear in this document. It will be soon. Let's please go to the next slide. Land use planning in India is embedded in Integrated Watershed Management Program, which is an overall umbrella program in India. Land degradation neutrality is also under it. Integrated watershed management is implemented at the district level based on guidelines coming from the state and the national levels. The overall responsible is an appointed engineer at the district council level. He must prioritize watersheds, design intervention projects, appoint project implementation agencies, engage technical agencies, and secure participation, coordinate participation of the local communities, a very central role. The project implementation agency typically is an NGO in charge for implementation on the ground. Technical agencies like our partner, KASRI in Rajasthan, have a very important role too. They help in drafting technical implementation plans. They provide technical guidance to the NGOs on the ground, and they produce the monitor plan, and especially by using remote sensing data and implement these plans. And our tool, our application of the tool will be fully implemented in this institutional land use planning process that will give sustainability and replicability to the exercise. Please, the next slide. The tool will have two users, the technical user, the technical agency that will run the tool, and the final user, the district council engineers that will use the tool outputs for decision making. They work together. They have information and methodological needs that the tool will meet. They need good data to prioritize the watersheds, to develop the action plans, and also they need methodological support to set the LDN targets, including anticipating the future projected land degradation, and also to address dust generation, which are new challenges that are now high in the political agenda of India, and rather new, including land degradation neutrality, at least at the district level. And the tool will provide quality maps, will allow integrating expert knowledge to generate the scenarios, and will generate the scenario maps that they need to draw the action plans. In addition to this, the tool can also support the assessment of the interventions on the projected future land degradation, and it could support priority setting also at the national and state level, so beyond the district, once the use of the tool will be institutionalized. Please, the next one. You know already this slide. It was not changed since the pitch. So the green box in the middle show how the tool modules use multiple EO data to generate land surface features that are used to map current and future land degradation along with the corresponding level of dust emission. This is a unique capacity of our tool. The other side of the page shows how the tool is organized into three functional layers: 0, data extraction; 1, monitoring and modeling; and 2, forecasting. The boxes to the left show that the tool is connected to Trend Earth in the process of generating the current land degradation maps. The tools also integrate user-defined planning units and SLM. Sorry for the background noise. I cannot control it. There is some work ongoing in the next building that I didn't expect. Sorry about that. And the low red box indicates how the information is used to generate land degradation scenarios. Now I will explain this part more in detail. The next slide, please. The key final output of the tool are listed to the left. They are not the only products, but the key ones that the user needs to use for land degradation neutrality. They are maps at time 0, the current conditions, and maps at time n, after n years, which is the projected future condition. In each time, they include at least land cover, land degradation, and dust emission. They are used to generate two types of scenarios, the LDN relevant scenarios that you see exemplified to the right. So what happens if I implement a given SLM technology as a measure to avoid the new future land degradation on part of District A? And what happens if I implement the SLM to counterbalance in District B that part of new projected land degradation that is not avoided in the District A? In each case, the tool calculates the impact as land cover change and land degradation and dust emission reduction at time n, but also as change in other surface features that can be linked to land capital and ecosystem services. The next one, please. The users will formulate the scenarios based on tables and maps generated for that purpose. For each planning unit, they may have different suitability and vulnerability in each planning unit. The tool will generate the map of the areas projected to get degraded and the corresponding table showing the hectares degraded by land use type. Users must decide what to avoid or not based on biophysical constraints and available budget. As an example, they may decide to avoid degradation in only 50% of the projected degraded grazing land and spend 1 million for that. For the future land degradation that they don't avoid, they repeat a similar exercise work with a new map and a new table generated for a planning unit where there is some past land degradation that can be reduced or reversed. For each scenario, the tool calculates the impacts as you see as hectares of land involved, financial cost, tons of dust, which is a very important off-site impact, not only in India, but more and more recognized everywhere in the world. Next slide, please. This is a very initial design of the user interface, just to give you an idea of the whole thing. The blue box simulates the main window with all the basic function. The three boxes to the right represent the three functional layers, 0, 1, and 2, where the maps are generated. To the left, there is a trend curve box, very important, that guide the user in generating the trend curve indicators maps as standard maps using global dataset, but also as custom maps using the data generated by the tool itself at higher resolution. The gray box to the bottom is the core part of the interface, the one where the stakeholder information is uploaded and that generates the maps and tables for the stakeholder participatory workshops for the scenario building. Please, the next one. This is a fragment of our user journey. I will not comment it now because I guess you already understood how the tool is working, because we are working in a process that is embedded in the national land use planning process. And our user journey, which we provided, we delivered, tells the storyline of the users that go through the steps of this journey and tells how the tool will help him. So please, the next one. We are on track with our work plan, maybe ahead of schedule. This slide is almost the same that I've shown in the pitch event. We just moved to the left, the black dot marking the beginning of stakeholder engagement, because we anticipated this. They are engaged, they are all engaged now. And we underlined few words on the right side. As you see, the role of CASRI, our partner, is in evidence in the partner action loop, not because it is the only stakeholder engaged, but because the technical agency has a central role in land use planning in the district. So CASRI for us acts as a facilitator to secure the stakeholder engagement and also to help communication with proper language. The next one, please. The progress with development of the functionalities is good. Layer 0 and layer 1 are functional. They are being tested since 2018, so we're not starting from scratch. Layer 2 is still under development. You see, it's still being tested. You see the design of layer 2 to the right, and you see that the user scenarios in blue, they contribute to feed the forecaster engine together with the data generated by layer 0 and 1. And the latter are processed by machine learning component. But we'll tell you more later about that. And then the user interface, it is only at the initial design stage. That will be done really with the user. Go to the next, please. So this is a bit more detailed, more technical. Is architecture of layer 0 and 1, where the key products are generated starting from the multiple data set. You see examples in the bottom. It shows also the validation and calibration flow, which is in part is based on data coming from the ground, see lower right side, but also on cross-validation of output. See the intercomparison box to the left high part. Here, in this flow, also the data generated by trenders come into the flow, along with relevant local user maps if available. In the single component mode, you see upper right, a user-driven combination of metrics can build the land degradation index using indexing functionalities, as an example, the land susceptibility to wind erosion or other. The next one, please. So the following slides have been prepared to answer a jury question about the global scalability of the tool. I want to comment on that. Our tool will be designed and finalized in India if we are selected, but it will not be an Indian tool, it will be a global tool. Our Indian software co-developers are part of the team since before this competition, so not because they are Indian, but they have great capacity, especially in machine learning, some great IT capacities. They especially will be in charge for development of the layer 2. The project is based on co-design with real users, and this is necessary for us, especially to develop functionalities to secure that the tool has capacity to generate land degradation products that are aligned with the local and contextual perception of land degradation, because land degradation is contextual. The second point is to design a user-effective interface that enables the users to extract the type and format of information that they need, that they can interpret, and they can use for LDN mapping. But the tool will not be an Indian tool, a bit like a phone. You may have an app for Indian farmers in the phone, but the technology is global, is designed for the global users. So let me say that our tool may be less intuitive. It may appear more complex than others because of the strong use of remote sensing data. And you may think that a more simple tool that is, let's say, built with a group of local stakeholders in one country, because it is simple, it can be easily used by other stakeholders in another country, in China or Iraq, but it may be the other way around. For our tool, validation of products is very important, and this is an asset. Our Indian stakeholders especially need validated data related to the SDG indicators 15.3.1. We are in touch about this with the national focal point of India for the UNCCD. They are expecting this contribution from our tool. Validation requires effort, but other tools are obliged to rely on coarse resolution maps or on local maps. And we know in most cases, local maps, when are available, they didn't go through rigorous validation processes. So we cannot escape validation. As written in this slide, the tool components are designed to be implemented as regional variants. Adaptation and transferability are there because numerical modeling and machine learning forecasting are validated and refined through a tune-up process by the outputs of the monitoring component and by user validation. The next one, please.
Sorry for interrupting, Claudio. You're running out of time. Just another minute. Yeah.
Yeah. beyond other technical considerations, I want to stress the next slide, that we started monitoring the layer 0 and 1 since 2018 in Mongolia and China. We have plans for global scaling, and we are taking arrangement to further continue this work in Central Asia. We plan to identify places in South America and North Africa. The next one, please. We estimate that validation will not be expensive in the field, and validation will be supported by a network of international research collaborations. We are setting it up. We will distribute validation tools and validation tutorials, so validation will be also distributed effort. We believe that if we are selected, several international partners will be interested in collaborating in this effort, and also GEO LDN initiative will support us. And the next one.
Thank you, Claudio. I'm going to have to interrupt you. We really are out of time here, and just in fairness to the others, we need the same standards for every
that's fine.
presentation. I'm very sorry. Please forgive me
that's
for
fine.
that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for showing that anyway.
Thank you very much, Claudio.
I'm the bad guy.
We need to play this role. It has to erode a little bit in the Q&A.
That's fine. That's fine.
So we have 10
Thank you
minutes
very much.
then. Yeah.
So once again, we invite the experts and jury members to please raise your hands, and to the attendees to please type your questions in the Q&A panel. You have clarified everything, Claudio.
And I think
Alex.
Dr. Shafira has
Matter
a
of
question
time.
in the chat as well.
Alex has raised his hands. You have the floor, Alex.
Definitely, thank you, Anna. So can you talk, I think you were obviously just getting into this at the end about test and validation. Based on the content on that slide, it seems like that's focused mostly on validating remote sensing products. But of course, a big focus here is on the neutrality mechanism and supporting land use planning. Can you talk a bit about how you will work with users to ensure that the tool is meeting user needs in terms of land use planning and the implementation of the LDN mechanism?
Yes, well, if you remember what I have shown initially, I've described how the land use planning process is organized. I have mentioned that there are three main actors engaged, and these are the NGOs implementing in the field, the council, the district council, that is a decision-making body, and there is the technical agency, that is the partner that does a bit of the technical work and support the decision-making. These three actors are engaged in the process. So this will secure that our activity is fully embedded in the institutional process. This is the first point that I want to stress.
I can go to the slide again, Claudio, if you tell me which slide it is.
Oh, that was the number 3.
Okay, I have a different numbering system here, so
I see.
because I embedded it in mine, but just tell me when I get to it, just 1 second. And now it's stuck. So here's the beginning.
Number 3.
This one here?
No, the previous one. The
previous, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
So here we have these three actors. They are those doing the land use planning work at the district level. So the tool will be, the prototype, will be developed and finalized with them there in the district that we have already selected, the Jaisalmer district in Rajasthan. But there, our plan is to institutionalize the use of the tool, because we are in touch already with the national focal point of India for the UNCCD. If, they like the results of our work in the district, what we want to propose is that the tool is first used to support the priority setting at the national, at the country level for the selection of the hotspot areas where the work has been done. And then, of course, as tool to be used in each district. This is our ambition. for the case of India, of course, but each country has a different arrangement or administrative organization. And then in terms of achieving the LDN targets, can you please go to the table with, sorry, the slide with the table?
Which one?
No, the table and the table, sorry, the table with numbers. This one. So we will, within the district, we will give the users the possibility to define planning units, because they are working with land degradation since decades, and they have local maps and local knowledge. They know that there are areas with different vulnerability, different sensitivity. We want to integrate this knowledge. So there will be different planning units. And for the planning units, we will generate the maps of projected future land degradation at different time steps. This will be done by our, let's say, forecasting capacity of the tool. And we will have the maps and the table showing how this is organized, I mean, by what are the numbers in terms of hectares by land use type. So the user there can decide what can I do to avoid this projected future land degradation. If they can avoid, the game is done, is over. If they cannot avoid, maybe they decide there is some remote grazing land very far away. It is too expensive to go there. Let's take it. We cannot do with all the nomads of the region. Let me say something like that. So we accept that we have 1,000 hectares degraded in a remote place, but we can improve, we can counterbalance by improving the grazing near the city, as an example. And so they play another game with the table below, which is a table for another planning unit, maybe near the city, if we want to use this example. And there they have to decide how they can allocate money to improve what is degraded from the past, not what is projected for future. And this is the very sensitive and complex balancing game of the LDN framework, which is easy to do, but difficult to translate into a tool. Our ambition is to enable them to do that and to calculate the cost of that, and also in addition the dust emission for each choice, which is very, very key, important in many arid countries now, not just in India.
Thank you very much, Claudio. I see 2 additional raised hands, so I'm going to ask you, Neil first, and then Mariam, to quickly ask your questions, and also Claudio to please go ahead and ask. Oh, I'm sorry, I unlowered your hand, Neil. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. Just quickly, what have you been able to develop since the last, since the preview, what was the first one called? No, it's not the sneak peek. Is that what we're on now? Yeah, the pitch. That's right. Well done for keeping that in mind. How much of this have you been able to develop? Have you been able to implement actually much since that time?
Well, let's say after the pitch, the things became, let me say, concrete in our mind, because all the stakeholders engaged, all the partners, they understood there was a real option to go on, and especially on the Indian side. And so we had a lot of discussion on that, and we developed, I think, quite well. I mean, the very last slide is an example of very preliminary application of layer 0 and layer 1 of our tool to the Thar Desert, because the other 2 slides with pictures were about the work done in Mongolia 2 years ago, and the work done in Kubuchi in China just a few months ago, where we also had already the field mission, and also with soil sampling, and especially with drone work, and that was done. Now we are starting in Thar. We compiled all the data set. We downloaded huge amount of data. This is not me. Our technical implementation leader can explain to you everything if you like, and started generating outputs. And these outputs now we have to discuss and build and refine. During the next 3 months, this output, let me say, will make sense, because land degradation, you cannot hit the target at the first. You have to refine. You have to refine, discuss, check with the expert knowledge. Does it make sense or not? And so we are confident that will be done. It's being done.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. With this, we ran out of time, but Marian does have a question. I'm going to ask you to please type the question to Team F, if that's okay, Mariam, to be fair with all the teams. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you, Anna.
Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Anna, for being the bad guy. If we take a look in the text chat, there are some other questions in there as well. So please, I'd just like to direct your attention to the text chat so you can scan that for some questions. And yeah, with that, we come to our general question section. So what general questions? So not really questions relating to particular sneak previews you've seen today, but perhaps to the entire competition framework and so forth. What general questions do you have? And I'll ask you to please put a keyword or pose your question in the text chat. I'll give you a minute to do that. Again, what general questions do you have? And we'll answer those on the fly.
Just to let you know, I'm going to insert on the chat a question that was posed by one of the participants, Dr. Sherifa. He typed it in French, and the interpreters kindly translated it to us. So there's a first question there. If you'd like me to read it, if that's okay. I have a question for all the teams. How confident are you about the tools you are proposing in terms of the final adjustments needed and validating it?
And who would like
I
to
imagine, look, I don't know if I can answer. I'm obviously not the right person to answer that. That seems like a difficult question to answer for the teams, though. I presume all of the teams have come here thinking that they can actually provide what we're asking for and in about the right time frame, right? So it's good to get, and I think today we've got a bit of a sense about how well developed those ideas are and those plans are. Some are stronger in some areas than others, further developed in some areas than others. And I think that's okay. It's a good question that Dr. Sherifa asks, because it could be quite revealing, but I think it might be a difficult one for the teams to answer.
In any case, if the teams would like to step in and say a couple of words, if we have time, I think we could leave the opportunity open.
Well, I mean, yes, it is a complex question, and but we can answer in terms of resolution of the data that we use. And in our case, this is maybe easier for us to answer because it depends on the resolution, spatial and temporal resolution of the data set that we are using. But then the other point, because our colleague is asking about the accuracy, this is different. And maybe it's too early to answer now.
Thank you, Claudio.
Unless my colleague Jungrat wants to say something, but maybe just too early to answer.
A reply for proposal N.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead, Pythagoras.
Okay. With regards to proposal N, we are very confident because the methodology have been in practice validated in real life workshops that happened in 2016. So we start from a validated methodology, and it's a matter of of transforming a validated method to the right digital tooling. So we are confident that we can deliver it. We are confident about the progress, because the complexity that in our idea had to tackle was more on the feasibility regarding the integration of the three different digital tools that we build our solution on. And obviously it's at the very end, in order to have a really user-friendly tool, it will require time and interactions with real users of this tool, which is foreseen, and this is actually the goal for the final round, the goal for the 9 months for moving from the beta version to the full-fledged version of the tool.
Thank you.
I see that Daniel raised his hand. If you'd like to.
Yeah, thank you. Well, our situation is very similar to what the other teams have said. So basically, we rely on the accuracy and validation of the input data we are using. And of course, there is a lot of, in our case, we use a lot of qualitative information, so that would be very difficult to assess numerically as how accurate and precise it is. And regarding validation, yeah, we are in to an early stage yet to validate, but of course, as soon as we can start testing the prototype with the users, we will be able to provide a real validation to see how it is working. And nevertheless, the kind of plans that we are going to test take time also. So it's very unlikely that we will have validating results in just a couple of months. Probably we would need a whole year to see some impact in the land, and to see if the actual scenarios that were chosen had a positive impact in the land.
Thank you, Daniel. Hilda, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you very much. What I'd like to say is that our team, we are confident about the tool that we are proposing. One of the things that should come out is that we have set standards for the data inputs that are required to make sure that the output is of the correct accuracy. And in addition, I'd like to say is that the algorithms that we have factored in the development of this tool are those that have been scientifically tested for quite a long time. And finally, validation is a continuous process, we started when we integrated the various users and have had various stakeholder meetings. And it's a process we are continuing with until we are sure we have a full-fledged prototype that can also undergo other validation processes among various users. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick question if Team L wants to intervene as well, very briefly.
Yes, thank you. So in answer to the question, we're very confident, as we already have a working prototype in the hands of our stakeholders, and all improvements will build upon this. As has been mentioned before, it will be critical to validate these results to ensure the outputs of the tool are accurate. And actually, a question from the previous pitch was around how we're going to test these predictions, and we will be testing them against historical data to understand the accuracy and the confidence in the outputs of the tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I saw earlier Marion had her hand raised. Marion, I don't know if you have a question now for the general Q&A, or if this had been left from before.
I forgot to remove my hand sign, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions, Michael, over to you.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. And there was one question in the chat from Simon, when the results of the sneak preview will be announced, and as Sarah said, at the latest by the 22nd of December, just to make sure you mark that on your calendars. And yeah, thanks, Anna, for that, for moderating that segment. And Yeah, I'm going to go now. We're coming to the end, and I'd like to turn over the microphone to Sarah, who's going to tell us, give us a few parting words in our wrap up.
Thank you,
Sarah.
Mike. So on behalf of the whole team, I would like to thank everyone for participating in this sneak preview event today, the teams for the high standard of their entries and presentations, and the expert jury members, attendees for their questions. It was a very lively session, I think. We are coming now to the exciting stage of the competition. Following this sneak preview, the jury panel will select our 3 finalists. And as we said right now in the chat, the results will be communicated to the team by the 22nd of December at the latest. So what are then the next steps? I've noticed that most teams have made an effort to involve land use planners among their stakeholders, but Astrid is coordinating some efforts to involve additional land use planners as part of our expert committee. And if we succeed in doing so, then Astrid would conduct some online interviews with them to better understand the day-to-day needs of their job. And we would then organize an online workshop, closed workshop with the teams and those land use planners, in which these 3 finalists would then present their prototype to the land use planner and get a real-time feedback on the utility and applicability of their tool from a practical land use planning perspective. So we hope this can help the teams to bring their tool yet to another level. As you know, the competition is expected to complete by the 19th session of the Committee for the Review of the Implementation of the Convention of the UNCCD. At that occasion, we will have a demo session where you will be able to showcase your prototype, and then there will be an award ceremony. Unfortunately, we are not able yet to confirm, as Neil was saying, the exact nature of the event, nor the exact date quite yet, but consultations are ongoing, and I'm hoping that next week a final decision will be taken. So rest reassured that as soon as we have a definite decision on this, it will be communicated to the teams via email and more broadly on our website. So having said that, I'd like to wish all the teams the best of luck for the next stage, and to everyone who is here today, a nice holiday season.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And yes, as you can see today, we've completed our sneak preview workshop, and we've got the CRIC to wait for in the first quarter of 2001. Now, as you'll know, we are interested in your feedback. How did you enjoy today? What did you especially like, and what can we improve on? Please take a minute and put a spontaneous answer into the text chat. What did you especially like? Maybe you hate collages, maybe you love them. What did you like? What did you not like? Or what can we improve on? Please, a couple words in the text chat. That helps us a lot in our design. So thinking about the sneak preview, I'll give you, let's say 1 minute to do that. Merci. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Okay, a few more seconds. What did you enjoy? What did you not enjoy? Or what can we do better? What was nice? What did you like? Please be specific and spontaneous. And now we will move on to just some brief words of thanks on my part. Thank you for all your efforts. If you think back to the to the pitches and see this whole process evolving. We're really in suspense as to the finalists, and yeah, we look forward to finding that out on the 22nd. So the excitement goes on, keeping us at the edges of our seats. Thank you all for your presentations today. I found it went very quickly considering the amount of time we spent here, and that has to do with your engagement, and you're putting a lot of effort into that, and we really do appreciate that. As Sarah said, we're looking forward to seeing you at the CRIC 19 the first quarter of the coming year. The coming year will be hopefully a lot better than this year was, and yeah, we look forward to seeing you all then. And thank you again. And as you know, to get in touch, of course, our contact details here, and please do feel free to get in touch. So from us now, goodbye everybody, and thanks a lot again, and look forward to seeing you again fairly soon. So bye-bye.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.